Welcome, y'all, to Volleyball Dads podcast once again. Sets and hits, and of course, it's your co-host Spurge, but also with my boy Dane.
Hello,
There you
people.
go. Introduce. He's the quiet and shy one, as we know the group, right? now. But we call him the volleyball whisperer. He knows all, sees all as well. Hey, we have a fantastic show today. Once again, we are always pleased to have some guest hosts that are enlightening our volleyball knowledge. Also, for you who are tuning in, want to learn more about volleyball than the two of us can ever tell you. So we bring on the expert. And this expert is our coach, Haley Eckerman. Welcome, Coach Eckerman.
Hello.
How
Thank
you
you.
doing?
Hello. Good. How are
All
you?
right. And those y'all see her on video, you'll see she's way more attractive than the two of us. But she is a great coach as well, representing females all over the country with coaching. And we like to see that as well, which is great. But tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself, Coach Eckerman, and tell us where you're from and a little bit about you before we start.
Yeah. Originally from Waterloo, Iowa. Born and raised
Whoa, whoa,
there.
whoa, 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 whoa,
Yes,
whoa.
there are Black people in Iowa. Yes. I know
Oh,
that's the
okay.
first
Where are
question
we
you're going
going
to
now?
ask.
Oh, okay.
Yes. A lot of people think I'm from Texas, but born and raised in Waterloo, Iowa, and then went on to play at the University of Texas. Was
Mhm.
there for 4 years. Big 12 and ABCA Freshman of the Year, four-time All-American, won a national championship my sophomore year of college, and then went on to play professionally. South Korea, Azerbaijan, Italy, Puerto Rico, Russia, and then just got to a point where pro volleyball. I wish this league was around when I was playing. I probably would have stayed playing.
Right.
Um, Got into coaching, did a year back home in high school, and then started coaching college. Was at Lamar for a season. Tarleton State helped them transition from the D2 to D1
Wow.
era, and then went over to TCU as the recruiting coordinator there, and then took the head coach job at Kent State, and just finished my third season there.
Great,
Nice.
great.
Nice.
Excellent. I like how she glossed over the, four-time All-American and the
She didn't gloss. You
national
caught it.
champion.
That's
I
how you
mean, there's
talking about it.
you go, a full-time All-American, national champion, played professional
Absolutely.
for several years, seen the world. Hey, we like that. That's good stuff. All right. So you come with some credibility
Just a little bit, yeah.
and know this volleyball world. That's great. And a great coaching career. So both in high school, right, all the way now through college, taking the school from D2 to D1. And then, of course, impressively leading Kent State volleyball program as
Yes.
well. All
Yep.
right.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, well, we're going to jump right into just some of these questions about that. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, Waterloo, Iowa, which, like I said, one of those places I'm sure that's lovely to visit, especially in the winter as well.
No.
But,
It's cold.
so we can I'm gonna work my way backwards as well. And Dames always jumps in with some of the good pointed questions I forget. But you're at Kent State now, Now, how has that been working the last 3 years at the collegiate level? And what's been your experience over the last 3 years being at Kent State? What's been kind of like the high moments of being there as a head coach? And how did you get there? I know you got there from Tarleton, right? But how did they recruit you to be the head coach there, Kent?
Yeah, so starting with that, so I was at TCU. The head coach got let go, kind of went through that process, and I had been at four schools in 4 years. And really the only one that I wanted to leave was the Tarleton to TCU transition. The other ones I would have been okay staying there, but had coaching changes and had different things. And so I have a 14-year-old son I had in my junior year of high school. And he lives with my mom in Iowa just because I was overseas for those 5 years and then coaching in different cities. And, every 8 months I was basically moving to a different city. And so I kind of, I mean, as an assistant coach, you're not really locked into a contract. And so was really
Really?
looking, yeah, if anything, like, you may you're in a contract as far as like, hey, we pay this moving stipend for you. If you move within this time, you got to pay it back, but there's not really any stability as an assistant coach. So it's really looking to that. I was going back and forth with, do I go JUCO? Do I go coach high school here in Texas? I felt like my name held so much more weight in Texas as a coach, and I wasn't really ready to step out of that kind of comfort zone. Applied for the job at Kent and saw the potential that they had. The MAC is a really good conference that kind of, it's anybody's game. It's that blue collar kind of conference. And so did the interview, really loved the staff, and then took a visit and was kind of like, okay, what am I getting myself into? Like, do I want to move back to the Midwest? Two, am I going to be able to recruit and find kids? And I took the visit. The facilities they have, as a mid-major, being able to have some of the things, I think helped me kind of make that decision. Being able to have a athletic training room that has a cryotherapy. Like, you don't even get that sometimes at some Power 5 schools. So being able
Right.
to use kind of what they had, I felt like the resources were enough to be able to recruit and find the right kids. But I think that was also the toughest spot. So when I got there basically actually 3 years ago. Yesterday was my first day. Yeah, and it was too late to try. I mean, all the kids for that class were basically committed for the 2022 class. It's so hard, when you're 10 steps behind. So I kept the same girls that were already committed, their roster. And the kids they had weren't bad. They're losing 25-23, 25-22, but they're making 15 hitting errors, 12 missed serves. So you're like, if you can fix that, okay. So had 8 kids graduate that year, and then 5 kids go in the portal. So I ended up with like 3 kids left, and was really trying to build. And even that 2023 class, most of those kids were already committed too. So trying to kind of pull pieces and use the transfer portal and get kids that I could. We did what we could, I think, for that second season. We also had like 7 or 8 injuries. Every week I was like, who's healthy? We had 3 kids out with COVID at one point. Like, my setter, my libero, and my middle were out. Like, it was like, if anything could happen, it was happening. So then had to kind of adjust again. Last year I had again 6 kids stay, and had to bring in 11 new kids again. So I think that's been my biggest challenge. And so this spring, I actually have 13 kids in the spring, and we'll only have to bring in 4 or 5 kids. So it's finally kind of my recruits, the 2024 class, or the kids that I got to talk to from the beginning of their recruiting season to the end. And I think I'm finally getting my sort of kids in versus kind of kids that are coming from different programs, and I'm just trying to scramble stuff together.
So but I'm assuming that's a big challenge for you right now, right? It's just, well, that was the biggest challenge. Now you're at the point where you're able to kind of, like I said, recruit your own kids as well to the program. Kind of, what are you looking for when you look for your kind of volleyball player? What are the things you're looking for?
Yeah, it's hard to take the player out of it when you're a coach. And I've had to learn that. And that's kind of been.
What do you mean? So what do you mean when you take the player out of it as a coach?
Yeah. So if you think about it, I've only lost 14 games in my 4 years as a collegiate player. And the mindset of kids are so different now. They went through COVID as a player. They went through kind of the unknowns. They went through the social media phase. I mean, Instagram was kind of getting started when I was in college. So really trying to balance those pieces, I think, are the biggest part of like finding the right kids. And so trying to find kids that have that dog mentality, that want to work, that want to get better. But it's hard when you're in this social media phase, and this NIL phase, and this transfer portal phase to really find that. So like, that's been our biggest thing is from the recruiting standpoint, is like, what are the questions I can ask these kids that really show kind of that true side? Because just like every coach, sometimes people feel that coaches are going to tell you what you want to hear. Players are going to do the same thing. Club coordinators are going to do the same thing. So how do you find what truly is that person without having to kind of have a risk and reward? So like, that's kind of what happened my first year with that first recruiting class. Is I thought I was getting kids that wanted to work hard and were going to be able to adjust to me being super blunt and holding them accountable. And they weren't ready for that. So I lost so many kids to the portal because of that, because it's kind of that like, well, I just want a scholarship or I just want a spot on a team, and this is kind of all that's left.
Mm. Do you find that?
So
Oh, go ahead, Dan.
no, 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 no. So what resonated when you said the dog mentality? Because you're the first coach I've heard say that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the type that like you'll watch some coaches react to, I mean, even just the Texas volleyball kind of era, the talking through the net or the reactions or the so like how they act is that's just Texas.
Right,
But it's not just for show. That's just we're that's just kind of the breed that we are.
right,
And so we'll watch a kid, and I'll be watching with other coaches, and she'll do something and kind of react, and coaches are like, oh, I don't want a kid like that. I'm like, I want the kid. I want the kid that's talking trash. I want the kid that
Mm,
comes down and talks
mm,
trash after getting a block, whether it's to her
mm,
teammates or to the other team. Like,
ah,
you got to have a
mm,
little bit of edge of that, but you also have to have the
mm,
ones that aren't afraid. And I think that's what I mean more by dog, is like aren't afraid to call people out and hold people accountable and understand that it's not about how I say it, it's what I'm trying to say, and that I'm here for a goal. I think I had to
right,
tell my kids the last couple of years, like, you're not here to find your bridesmaid. If you find it, great, but that's not your priority here. Your priority here is to come in and win. And I think that's why Texas was the place that I wanted to go to, because it was about winning. We were a winning culture. I mean,
right,
none of the other sports, unfortunately, were doing well. Like, it was a volleyball school. And
right.
so we knew coming in that like it was a disappointment to us if we didn't make it to the Final Four, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, like those things. And I think that's just kind of what Jarrett instilled in the program and the culture. And it's hard, like I said, kind of taking that player out of it and understanding that there's many more things that they're dealing with now.
You find too that you mentioned that yeah, kids say the right thing when they're getting recruited. Coaches sometimes say the right thing. Do you find that are you blunt in your how's your approach, I guess, to kids? I mean, because you're right, you're trying to get the kid that understands that I may be talking to you in a certain tone, but it's not because I don't like you, it's because I'm trying to instruct you. So how do you kind of navigate that when you're recruiting so that you're not one, turn them off, but also two, they know what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is trying to find the kids that we know what programs they come from. So, like one of my freshman kids, she played club for one of my best friends, and I knew what kind of environment she came from, where they hold her accountable. They're going to be hard, as what these kids are calling it on her. And so she was a freshman that I could hold a little bit more accountable,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of sat her down and said, like, hey, I might be harder on you just because I want other people to see, like, hey, as a freshman, I'm able to take what she's saying and get better. And so there's times that I may hold you just a little bit more accountable than other people, because I need them to see you can handle it and that you're able to be successful, and not have, that breakdown in those moments. So it's tough. Like, I think really just trying to watch how they interact. One of the questions we've been asking is like, what was your least favorite chore growing up? Because if they say something like, well, doing laundry, or like putting my laundry in a basket, like something simple as that, like, okay, then you're not going to like when I hold you accountable and you have to, do this drill until you get it done. Or I'm holding you accountable because academically you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not going to like that. And then you're probably going to go in the portal, and then we're just going to be right back. So, really trying to find, and I've been working with our student athlete development person, like, what are some ways that I can find more out about those kids, like in the recruiting process. But it's tough too when I mean, you had 200 something kids commit on June 15th. And you're like, you
Yeah,
got kids expecting an offer on that first phone call. And I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
I'm not doing that. I know some of these other people are, but I'm not. Like, I want this
Right.
relationship, and I need to know that not only is this the right fit for you, but you're the right fit for me.
yeah. Mm,
How do you
that's
manage
important.
when you talk about fits? Because you're dealing with kids that are coming off the board, and then you got the portal. So it's a kid. It's kind of a little bit of a quagmire, don't you think? Because and we're seeing it happen all the time. I mean, again, people can't control, coaching changes and stuff like that. It happens. That's a part of it. And so, do you think the kids are truly committing to schools?
I think it just kind of depends on the kid. There's some kids that are just trying to find whoever is going to take them and not paying attention to what they're getting into. There's some kids I think that are choosing schools based off of what they think is going to be best that their peers are going to think that they're doing well in.
Right.
So like if you have a whole team that they're all going Power Five and you're the only one that's not, are you just making the sacrifice to walk on and never get to play because it's a Power Five? Or are you going to go somewhere and be, someone that makes a change at a low mid major? But I think that's part of it. I think it goes back to kind of, and it's unfortunate, like the club world to me kind of babies some of the kids. I think it's a let's go have fun, let's stay at a hotel, let's travel, let's do this. Some
Yeah.
people are, well, I pay for this, so I get to play, and everybody plays, and um, that's not how it works at the college level. And I think having to have that realization, a lot of these kids aren't ready for the reality check of that. But my biggest thing is like, this is how life is going to be, whether it's your job, whether it's if you go pro, like whatever you do, like, and that goes for every sport. I mean, I talk with our basketball kids a lot and our football kids, like, if you guys want to be paid employee athletes,
Hmm.
understand that if you don't do your job as a professional athlete, you're gone. Like, I've been in those situations where if I wasn't doing my job, I was going to be cut. And if that's what you want, we can get to that space. But I don't think y'all are ready for that space either. Like, which one do you want? Do you want, and I'm all for NIL and those things, but like, do you want to be an employee or what do you want? So I think the kids don't know how to handle that stuff.
Yeah, you make some interesting points because I think that, and both Dame and I, kids have, been through this recruiting or going through this recruiting process, and you do have to kind of focus your kid on not what everybody else is doing
Mm-hmm.
and finding the right fit for you. And you're right, it's challenging, especially when you're at certain clubs and in particular, and this whole landscape. There's some clubs that we're playing, everybody is going, Power Five, or
Mm-hmm.
coaches are literally recruiting kids just because they're in a certain program, and you can think where they better, et cetera, et cetera. So I can see where that mindset is a little bit tough. But how do you talk to the kids? Because we try to make a emphasis here that not every kid we're going to talk about is a Power Five kid or a top kid, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera, but they want to play volleyball. There's some great mid-major program, D2 program, D3 programs. We know
Mm-hmm.
that, but these kids don't have the same esteem about it. So how do you focus your recruiting to attract a kid who may think that, I don't know if a mid-major is right for me, but guess what? That's probably right. Like I believe playing matters, but I'll
Mm-hmm.
let you take it from here.
Yeah, I think the biggest piece is just that kind of vulnerability and like open communication. I mean, we had a kid that she's on our team right now. She's 6'4", just had started playing volleyball maybe 2 years ago and wasn't playing for a huge team in Ohio. Showed up at our camp and I was like, hey, look, you're coachable and I can tell through this camp that you're coachable. I can teach you the skill. I can't teach height. I can't teach coordination. We can figure out the rest of it. So with her, it was me being open about, hey, look, I'm going to redshirt you when you get here. And we're going to spend this time of getting you better. And it may not be in the fall because I've got
Mm-hmm.
to focus on the people that are going to be out on the court. But this spring, we're really going to take the time. And so for her, unfortunately, she just had an injury. So she is basically set back again. But I told her again, I said, look, now you get another red shirt because of
Mm-hmm.
this injury. So now and the plus side is, yes, you're not going to be here for the fall, but that gives us a spring to be able to train you again instead of trying to rush you back. So really trying to be open and have those conversations. I'll sit down and tell a kid like, hey, this is exactly what I'm thinking for you. This is where I'm going to potentially have you as a player, but just know that, if you are a walk on, I'm big on if you come out here and you continue to earn it, like I'm going to make sure that you understand that whether it's 1 year of money, 2 years, something, but like your value will be here, but you have to come in and earn it. So I think that's the problem is a lot of people kind of leave some open promises or they overpromise from the get-go. But I also like I make sure that we have continuous conversations. So I'll tell kids like on their June 15th call, like, hey, I'm not offering, I don't plan on offering right now. I'm not offering till you come and take a visit, which we all know that can't happen until August 1. So like I you're not going to get that from me. And I'll ask them, like, what's your recruiting process look like? Like, are you trying to make a decision in the next 3 weeks? Because then if that's the case, we're not the school for you. And so getting them to understand that. And I think kind of going off when you talked about how do kids make that decision, one of the things I was taught by a super famous coach at the University of Northern Iowa, Raj, when I was in my recruiting process, he had retired, and he sat me down and said, make a pros and cons list before you even get to the conversations with the coaches. What are things that you're wanting to have? Is it an academic program that you're not willing to make a sacrifice for? Are you wanting a big city? Are you wanting warmth? Are you wanting, this, and this? And so for me, one of those things, for example, was I wanted diversity. And I went to a program, was almost set to committing to them. And they're like, hey, you'd be the first Black girl here. We would use that to bring more Black girls. And, we've been to your high school and this, and this. And I was like, no. And that was like, what am I willing to sacrifice in that piece? And then I got to Texas and it was like, hey, there's 7 Black girls here and there's a Black assistant female coach. And so having that list, but then also every time they have a phone call or a conversation or a visit, revisiting that pros and cons list and making it about that school so that you go back and say, okay, well, I really want nursing programs. And that's one of the hardest ones, for some volleyball teams to have. And so if you're like, hey, I want nursing, but this school is telling me no, and it's my dream school, okay, am I willing to sacrifice because of that? Or do I understand that volleyball is not going to last forever and I need to make sure I'm going and getting a major that I want and want to graduate with something that I want? And so having that balance, and we kind of do that a little bit with some of the athletes too, of like, okay, what are her pros? What does she bring to the table? What are the things that we're going to have to work on to get better? If something happens, if a player leaves, can she kind of be and fill that space?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know one of so I'm asking Dame's question too, because I know he had it as far as a list. Want to look at what's the parent engagement, and through this whole process that you have, because we know that becomes a key piece of it. As much as I know, Coach, I want to talk to the kid, but at the end of the day, you have to be realistic. I believe you have to believe that parents are a part of the equation. So how do you navigate that, or how do you incorporate the parent into the conversation? I got that right, Dane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so the beginning and most of the conversation is with the athlete. When we bring them on a visit, though, is when we kind of engage a little bit more with the parent. And I tell a kid, when I get on a phone call with them, like, hey, here's my number if your parents have questions. But I also am very open about the fact that, like, if you get to that point, I will block you as a parent. At this point, when your daughter does get to me, she is an adult. I'm having the conversations with her. I'm not going to call you. And I tell my kids that, like, your parents cannot call me to talk about playing time. And I haven't had really any issues like that. I had that issue in high school when I was coaching. I actually made the parents sign a parental contract that they would not talk to me about their daughter's playing time.
Everybody does, right?
Yeah. And
Does that ever work?
before I took the job, they probably got 45 calls a season. And the AD told me they got none that year because I said, to be honest, I've been playing longer than your children have been born. I think I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And we made it to the last round of regionals. So obviously it worked. But you have to kind of be able to hold that throughout the whole, you can't make changes based off of the parents. And so I watch parents though on the recruit when I'm on the road recruiting. I also am a part of the Volleyball Moms Facebook page,
Oh,
and
you
kind of
are.
watch. Yeah, I mean, obviously some of them are anonymous, but there are certain things that I know that if I see them say something, I kind of may look up who their kid is just for the fact of I don't want to deal with you. Because if you are talking about your child's coach or another player or another, all of that, like there's not going to be respect for me. And it kind of goes too with how the players interact with their parents. Like I watch that a lot. If you're demanding that your mom goes and gets you this, your water bottle fills your water bottle up, then you're not going to have respect for my athletic trainer. Because if you can't respect your blood, then what respect do you have for anybody that just is around you? So I watch athletes a lot on the sidelines. I may not look like it. I wear a hat all the time, and I put my headphones in, but I am like trying to watch everything about how a kid interacts and how they, how parents react when either their kid makes a mistake or a teammate makes a mistake. And just trying to make sure that I'm not dealing with the crazy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, so so so, so all right. So now you know I heard y'all's conversation. So anyway, so let's get back. I mean, all right. So some crazies. Now, I mean, parents are just concerned. First of all, I'm not a crazy. I mean, I don't like
From a
let
simple
me
thing crazy, he's not crazy.
let me put that disclaimer out there now. I really, yeah, I don't give two you know what's. So at the end of the day, I mean, because again, I mean, like you say, when they turn 18, they're adults. So, but they also know certain things. Um, how, so so you've got no cause. 'Cause I know some of these parents. If you're a part of some of those groups, I'm sure you've read some of everything, and they say some of everything, and
Mm-hmm.
I do think it's weird. I really do. But I've been in gyms and I've heard some weird stuff. Again, kids make mistakes, right? So when I hear parents talk about kids making mistakes and all that kind of stuff, I'm like, and most of these parents probably never played anything, so that they're probably
Mm-hmm.
they're living through their kid or whatever, whatever. So I get it. Like, and I would always hear them say, "Hey, they're doing this," and I'm like, and they're upset. They start bringing the money component and the travel, and I'm like, and they have the same complaints every tournament. At some point, either A, you stop going, or B, you just let it play out. Like, because every
Mm-hmm.
qualifier, you hear these parents, and so I get what you're saying. But do you penalize every kid? Because the
No,
dad,
not necessarily. Not necessarily every kid, but I also kind of keep my head on a swivel with some of that
right,
stuff. So like
right,
if the parent then starts to ask, those questions or try like depending on their involvement in the recruitment, like if
right,
they're the ones, I mean, I've had a kid where I've been on the call with her and because I'll do FaceTime calls and things like that.
right.
And I can see the parent sliding over questions. Like I can see a hand and I can see the kid looking over and then asking the
Yeah.
question. And I'm like, so whose recruiting process is this?
Right.
Like, are you doing this because your parents want you here? Or are you talking to me because your parent wants you to? And maybe you just don't know what questions to ask. But also, at some point, you're going to be on your own. And that's what I try to make these parents understand too. Like, I am, my job is to be the parent when you're away. So my job is
That's
to,
huge.
there's things that your parents may tell you that you get upset with, but they're just trying to help you grow up.
Right.
And so there's things on and off the court that I may have a conversation with that I'm disappointed or, but my job is to make sure that you're growing now in a different aspect. And you may not like what your mom says, you may not like what I have to say, but you still end up doing it. So
Right.
having that, and but also getting the parents to understand, like, I'm also going to be that loving mother. And I think it helps that I have a kid too. I
Yeah.
have a freshman in high school to
Yeah.
know what I want for him.
Right.
And I went through the recruiting process. So I know what, things kids want to see and what they need to hear and want to hear. But for getting the parents to feel comfortable. And that's why I don't like to offer right away.
Hmm.
Unless it's a kid that I'm like, man, this kid probably is going to say yes to Texas if Texas were to say yes. And if I
Right.
can get her to come, then maybe. Or if I've done a coaching camp with her or something. But I'm really big on like, let's build this relationship and make sure that this is the right fit for you. Your family feels comfortable here. Our team feels comfortable with you. We feel comfortable with you, kind of, and everybody is involved.
So your process is ideal, but you and I both know that it doesn't work that way. Like you mentioned, you visit, I mean, you can have conversation in June, you can't visit until August.
Mm-hmm.
And parents who've played sports and went through a process said you got to visit first. Some schools, unfortunately, will put kids on a clock.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw it. So, and you
Yeah.
like, you can't ask a kid to commit somewhere sight unseen, no camp or nothing, and be like, but hey, it's either you or this other kid
I mean,
because she
you
wants to really
can
come.
because that's what they do, right?
And
That's what they're
Unfortunately,
doing.
yeah,
well, so
yeah.
that's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff had come off the table because a kid wanted to wait. Um, and so you're you have the ideal. option. I mean, I think every kid should visit, but it just does not work that way.
Yeah. And I know that those kids probably eventually wouldn't work out with me. And I would love to see the research on how many of those kids, and maybe this is what I'll do after I am done coaching, how many of those kids who committed day one or day before taking a visit end up in the transfer portal or end up not playing.
We've seen it over these last couple of
Yeah.
years. So think about
Yeah,
the
you're
kids who
seeing a lot
Yeah.
more
committed
of it.
like in the eighth grade when they could do that then.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Everything changes by the time you're a senior or even become a freshman. Like
Mm-hmm.
what was hot when you were an eighth grader, you don't think the same
Mm-hmm.
way, 4 years later or 5 years later. So,
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, I'm glad they
Well, and just
changed that.
coaching change, and yeah, I mean, you
Yeah,
have the
that's coaching
coaching
change.
change, you have
So,
the conference change,
Yeah,
like I probably
big
wouldn't have
deal.
chose Texas if they would have made the change they did because I wanted Big 10 or Big 12 because I wanted my family to be able to watch me play. I mean,
Right.
I turned down a Florida because of that. I turned down a USC because of that.
Right.
And things change so constantly. I mean,
Mhm.
whether
I
you're
mean,
coaching or recruiting, it's
yeah,
nonstop change. I think
I
we have a
mean,
compliance meeting every month, and I'm like, "What's the new rule?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking of that,
Let's,
because you
yes.
mentioned walk on, I don't know if this is going to be different. So I know they're looking to pass where your roster can be capped at 18.
mhm.
Um,
Yes, if you opt in.
if you opt in. Okay.
So if you opt in, but that's mainly is your football team going to opt in. So you're going to get like your South Dakota States, you're like those schools that aren't going to opt in. So they
Right.
can have more than 18.
Okay.
But they're also talking about changing the scholarship limit. So
Right.
you can have it, and that's going to be based off of each school. Like
Right.
I'm not going to get more than 12 full scholarships, but I can split those up and move those around is what it's more of what like the baseball, the softball, the track world getting to be able to do that if it passes.
Right.
We'll see if
Mhm.
it does. Who knows if it does? I think, you're going to have the schools that maybe a walk on kid that was going to go somewhere else, you could give them books or you could give them something to get them to stay.
Right.
But you also have to manage it as a coach and be basically a GM of, okay, who's going to be my priority? How much is going to be my priority? Am I going to get more money? What's the amount they're going to give me, and is that kid in state, out of state? Are they getting, at our school, if we have merit aid, that can count towards it. So there's so many different schools, but then you get your Ivy schools that are like, no, the only money we can give you is academic money.
Right.
So
Mhm.
every program is going to be so different on how they do it, and I think that's what kids are going to have to take the time more now to realize how each program does each thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So if they opt in, all right. So SEC, Texas and SEC, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
opt in
Mm-hmm.
across the board. So they'll, if it passes, they'll have 18 for volleyball, um, whatever for track. Track will increase, baseball will increase, rowing will increase.
So technically, they increase scholarship, but they're going to have to decrease their numbers.
Yeah,
So, like baseball, will have like 50 something kids on the team. They're only going to be able to have 45, but now you
45.
can technically put everybody on that money.
Right.
But it's also going to be whatever the conference says. So, like, for example, I think I was talking with our golf coach. I think SEC is saying even though you can have 9, we're going to keep it at 8. So everybody's at playing a clean level field.
Right.
So
Right.
so that's the other piece is like we don't even know what our conference is going to say. You have to have this to be a part of this. And then the school is going to say, well, we can't afford that, so
Yeah.
we're going to have to change conferences, or it's going to be world changing. Like
Yep.
Mm.
and it's scary because it's going to be so late.
Right.
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
it's not even going back to court until April, and then we don't know how long it's going to take, and they've already kind of given it an example and sent it back and said, no, you need to change this and this. Like it's scary. It's a scary world as a coach, like the unknowns before you even get into your season right now.
So are you seeing a lot of coaches are kind of preemptively preparing for it because of
Yep.
the unknown?
Yeah. And I think that's why there was more kids in the portal than
Mhm.
there probably should have been, because you have your 19th, 20th, 18, 19, 20th kid that was maybe a DS walk on or outside walk on that we already are going to have 16 and then we're bringing 3 more kids in, or 15, we're bringing 3 freshmen in. So they've got to make room for that. I saw before the men's season even started, Ohio State already started to make that plan for the men's volleyball team. And so you're seeing that of like, hey, we're going to have to make cuts, and we've got to make it now and hope that this does pass, because we may be losing out on this kid. But it kind of gives them a plus and a minus of like, hey, you're probably not going to play here, so let's find you somewhere you can play. Those were kind of the conversations that I had with some of our kids that when we had go in the portal, not necessarily for
Right.
roster cuts, but just kind of with how things were going, was like, hey, this is not the program for you. Let's get you somewhere where you're going to play, or let's get you somewhere where, you may make a more of an impact than you are here.
Are these kids that you recruited, or were they someone you inherited?
Um, my first year, 1 or 2 of them were ones I inherited. The last couple of years, the ones that I had go in the portal were me having that conversation. I had a couple kids that went in on their own, but there were some that like, hey, this is the way I'm wanting my program to go, and this is not going to work out.
Jeez.
So with that, I mean, those are hard facts and stuff like that. And I think people and kids need to know that sometimes the reality is that
Mm-hmm.
you're not a good fit for a program, or you came to it for the wrong reasons as well. But what are some of those dynamics? What are you seeing that's changing? I mean, we know we talk about NIL. I guess that's one thing we talk about. But we also talk about transfer portal. How has that affected your team? I gather you said that basically you're telling kids that, hey, if this is not going to work out for you, you should probably jump in the transfer portal. What effect is it having of kids presumptively going and say, hey, I'm gonna go somewhere for 2 years and still jump in the transfer portal because I want to move to a Power Five
Mm-hmm.
versus I have a mid major? Are you seeing that at all, or are you concerned about that? What's some of the changes you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, not at my level. The kids that chose to go into the portal on their own for my team went to a lower division, or a
Mm,
lower level. And it kind of is a reality check of like, yeah, this wasn't for you. And
gotcha.
it's one of those kind of like, not I told you so moments, but like, hey, we were right. You weren't fit for this program, or you weren't fit for the culture of what we're trying to build. I think not necessarily fully in the volleyball level. I mean, NIL, depending on where you are, if you're an SEC, if you're a power, those power four schools, it plays a little bit more of an impact. My kids are getting more of the sponsorship deals that are, hey, instead of you buying our caffeine drink or whatever, how about we give it to you, and then it's doing those kind of business deals. Um, but I know in other sports, and I've seen it a lot lately, it's I'm going to get in here, I'm going to do what I need to do, and then I'm going to go find the next school that's going to give me the most money.
Right.
Um, and we saw it a little bit, I think, with the transfer portal. I don't think it was NIL based. It may have been either revenue generating based if we go to that point of it, with the volleyball world of like, for example, if I'm at Nebraska and they're telling me that I'm gonna share 5% with other sports if this passes. So 75% is, from my understanding, 75% goes to football, 15 goes to men's basketball. I think 5 go to women's basketball and 5 go to the other sports shared. If I'm
Wow.
Nebraska and we brought in 92,000 people and I'm going to share 5%, like, absolutely not.
Mhm.
So I think that's kind of some of the spaces that coaches are dealing with now of like, no, we're a volleyball program. Like, we're a volleyball school. I deserve this and my kids deserve this. So I think that's where, if anything, with the NIL space is going to kind of change. But I think if you're a power forward, like, you're not going to have those problems. It's more, and the mid majors, I don't, if I have a kid asking in their visit how much NIL money they're going to get or how much revenue money they're going to get, I probably am not continuing that conversation after.
Gotcha.
Because if that's your focus, then why are we here? Because you're not going to get it at the mid-major level. It's just not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to make $80,000 or be in Marriott commercials like Madison Skinner at this level.
And well, volleyball dads is trying to get the Marriott commercial, so we're gonna try to work on that.
I'll take it. I'm like, what about me? Like, I'll take some deals.
Exactly. Well, are you seeing that consistently across the mid majors, or say, and other coaches, are they have that same kind of mentality that look, we don't want kids here just coming for NIL because that's not what we're really going to offer. We're going to truly teach you how to play volleyball and have fun at the game. What's that approach
Yeah,
beyond just you? What are you hearing from your colleagues?
I think it's more of the scholarship piece is what's playing the factor. And kids now knowing that potentially everybody can be on scholarship, and it's more of like, what money can you give me towards my academic degree? That is causing kids to go into the portal. I mean, that I had a couple of kids that was their reasonings why. I mean, we had a conversation from the jump. You're going to be a walk on. If you, eventually earn your way, maybe there's some money your junior, senior year. There we go. And their freshmen, after their freshman season of only being there for 3 months, they're like, well, I need money. And I'm like, we've had this conversation. There is no money. Well, I'm going to leave then. Okay. I mean, that's what it is. Like, I'm not
Right,
changing for you. Like, I'm not going to go cut a different kid because, and you've only
right.
been here for 3 months and hardly played. Like, you haven't even proven to me. So I think that's where the change is going to happen of these kids knowing that there can be money now. That's going to change the volleyball world.
Hmm.
Ask you a hypothetical. If you were being recruited today, because a lot of this is happening, and you committed to a school, and then the coach resigns or takes another job, would you still go to that school?
Depends on if the coaches stay, like the assistant coaches stay, or who comes in. Because if
That,
it's a coach, like for example, you look at Danny. So Danny DBK was probably most likely recruiting the same kids
right.
that she was recruiting at Louisville. So those kids most likely at some point had a conversation with her and potentially were interested in her. Um, and I think, and I don't, I think that's why nobody left. No kids have decommitted from those classes because they know what they're getting.
That
I
was a
think if it's
unique
a
instance.
yeah, I think if it's
That-
a whole new if it's a
yeah,
whole new coaching staff, it kind of just depends. Like you again with the for me, the relationship piece is what was
yeah.
important to me. I mean, that's why one of the reasons I was potentially looking at Nebraska, mainly for the assistant coach. Ended up committing to Texas, and he ended up 2 years later getting a job at Texas. And I thought to myself, like, would I have stayed at Nebraska? Obviously, transferring was a little different then, but that
Mhm.
was the main reason why that I was looking at Nebraska because he had been my USA coach. I had built such a good relationship with him. And I'm big on relationship pieces. So for me personally, it would depend on who the coaching staff is that either stays or that they bring in.
Yeah.
A little
I mean, I just
volleyball
noticed.
with you. Yeah, I talk a little volleyball. So, transition from high school to college, what your kids expect? What's the biggest thing that you find that they're surprised by or have to learn? Or are you finding?
Yeah, I think the pace of the game is the biggest piece, especially for middles. And I think that's why for the longest Jarrett would redshirt his middles. The pace is so much faster. And we talk about that a lot with our kids and with our freshman kids. Being able to read what someone's doing and make a reaction and make changes a little bit quicker, I think is so different from the club world. You are scouting and recruiting and prepping for this team that you're about to play in college. And um, are you able to make those changes faster? I think is huge. And that's when we get the difference of the kids who are being successful is like, how quickly can you make a change? Um, Depending on how you are as far as organization and those things can be hard too. I mean, I struggled in high school, but did really well in college because I had the support. And that again was one of my pros on my list. I needed a school that wasn't going to miss a ton of days, but also was going to have the academic support. So my freshman year, we had a person sitting in the study hall room with us hey, what do you have due today? Hey, going through those things of let's work on a calendar that has everything that you need to have done. And so I've kind of taken some of those things and said, hey, well, we don't have the budget to have enough of those people. But
Hmm.
what were things that helped me transition? Because that is tough to balance, but to also have the freedom of like, I mean, you technically don't have to do your assignment right here, right now,
Right.
but are you willing to kind of get in that mindset of, well, I've got practice and we have a game and I'm going to be away in that class and am I going to have this turned in? And I have a test during our practice time at the away game. How do I make those changes? I think the other piece is communication is really big. Part of that, you have parents that are willing to speak up for you when you're injured, when you're not feeling well, when you want to know why you're not playing. And so having to do that on your own, I think, is a hard transition. And I think that's what kids struggle with is like, how do I voice my opinion and not seem like I'm a problem for the coach, but also wanting to get better.
So do you're the parent at the school, and so I'm assuming you have some sympathy, right, for some of these kids, because not all of them have the same, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
just outward, like, hey, I'm gonna tell coach, and they're here to have conversation. How you manage those multiple personalities and stuff to make sure that they can communicate well with you, but also now you're also coaching them hard because you want to get the best out of them, and it goes back to how you're developing kids in your program.
Yeah, so we spend a lot of the time in our off season, and that's why it's going to be really key for us this off season because we'll have 13 now this spring and only having to bring in 4 or 5 to our program versus having 6 and having to bring 11 new kids into our program with 2 weeks of a preseason training. But we spend a lot of time talking about like when I'm having an off day, what does that look like? And is there a certain person? As a coach, do I need to say, hey, you need to get it together? Or do I need to pull you aside? How do you function in those spaces and what does it look like? And then really trying to get our kids to understand like the open door policy and being okay with asking questions. And we tell our coaches, our football coach previously at Kent used to say, you don't know what you don't know. And so trying to get the kids to understand that mindset, like, I don't know this, so I have to ask instead of trying to figure it out on their own. I also do individual meetings with our kids in the fall. And then we have some new kids right now that I've just been trying to keep doing check-ins with them of like, hey, are you adjusting? Do you have issues with class? Really trying to almost pull it out of them to get them used to being comfortable with that.
Hmm. That's good. That's good. At Kent State, like I said, in Midwest, et cetera, what are some of the advantages you have as a coach, you think, at being at Kent State? What are some of the things you bring? Maybe what some of the challenges are, but what's some of why should a kid come to Kent State?
Yeah, I mean, we're a conference again that it's kind of anybody's game. My first year, it came down to the regular season championship of the 2 teams that were playing each other on a Tuesday, and the whoever won was hosting for Saturday. So it's any night that you're looking at it, you're like, man, they beat that team, or they beat that team, or this team struggled in this. But I think to our conference, the plus side of that is like you're able to easily get to pretty much everybody in our conference, but also us. So we have 2 airports, so Cleveland and Akron. And that's one of the things that when a kid comes on a visit, if they're from a small town, I'm going to fly them into Akron so that they don't feel that over big city kind of
Right.
feel. And it's, hey, the airport's 30 minutes away. You're going to drive through your rural towns, kind of where if you've got a big city kid that's like, I want the city life. Well, hey, the city life is only 45 minutes away, but you get to live in this small town. But let me drive you through downtown Cleveland on our way home. And so I think that aspect, I mean, that was the hardest piece for me. I lived in downtown Fort Worth when I was at TCU, and I was like,
Oh,
am I ready for this small town?
yeah.
I love that it takes me 5 minutes to get to work, but I also love the fact that I have friends that play NBA and NFL, and I can drive to Cleveland and not have to get a hotel to go hang out with them, and can come back the same night. Um, I think as a mid major, like I talked about earlier, though, like we have cryotherapy, we have kind of all these things. We get to do video stuff, like we have the social media piece of it. that some programs don't. You know, we have our own strength coach that just focuses on us. We have a practice facility that just men's and women's basketball and volleyball get to use. So we don't have to try to share a gym with, because our wrestling uses our main gym and gymnastics use our main gym. So I don't have to try to battle with 8 sports of, hey, okay, you guys are taking the main gym, we're going to take the practice gym. Or basketball has a game today, we're going to practice in the practice gym. So like I have some of those, or we even have teams that are like, they only have one court and they may have a doubleheader of basketball and volleyball, and they're trying to find that out and figure out how to do that. And we can warm up in the other gym so that then we're not having to waste extra time and do those things.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So, recruiting problem. Well, Dame, you got a question?
I'll come in, man. You're being Spurgeon.
So we talked a little about recruiting. I think people touch with NIL and stuff. So, and we talk about the type of person you're looking for as well. How should, kids prepare themselves? And we talked a little about how to prepare themselves for the recruiting process, but what are the intangibles that you're looking for? What are some of the things that are going to shine outside of the volleyball player and what they do on the court? And what are some of the other things you're looking from? And with that being said, I kind of want to add this on. Mental health has been one of these things that people have been talking about more and more with these young, because you're right, it's a different group, right? So do they have access to resources for that, but also to, what are you looking for those other intangibles besides, hey, this person's a great volleyball player?
A two-part question.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a two-part question. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
So
The mental health one
no,
dropped in
you're
on me. I
good.
was like,
You're
yeah, that's what I
good.
want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first part, kind of what am I looking for? I'm really big on like, are you a good person? When you come on our campus, do you interact well with our team? You know, we've had a kid that I've turned down, was a great kid, but she was more concerned about the basketball and football players. You know, can you show me the roster? Like asking our players that,
Wow.
who's this? Do we get to go to the football games? You know, like trying to really figure out what their mentality is going to be and what their focus is, I think is big for me. And again, kind of watching them off the court after games, like, do they cheer their teammates on? Do they sit and cheer other people on? Do they take their line judging job serious? Just those little things of like, what is really important to you? And I think too, a lot of times, like I try to watch either a full set or, warm ups, especially because sometimes warm ups can go really good or really bad. Like if your setter is just having an off day as a hitter, how are you reacting to that? Are you communicating with her? Really, that piece I think is the communication piece. When things are going wrong, what does your body language look like? Because things aren't going to be easy, and how are you going to react when you have to balance all these things at once? But then that kind of goes into the mental health piece. So I think the biggest struggle right now is getting kids to understand that there's a difference between mental health and mental toughness. And I am an advocate for mental health. My nonprofit focuses on it. But serving a ball on game point is not mental health. That is mental toughness. Shooting a free throw to win a game is mental toughness, not mental health. And really getting them to understand what the difference is. And me holding you accountable is not being mentally tough sometimes to them. To them, it's the mental health piece. And they have to find that balance of the two. So with our kids, really trying to set the standard straight and get them to understand, like, this is why I'm saying what I'm saying, because this is what you said you come here to do. So yeah, that's been the toughest piece with COVID, especially. We've talked about mental health more, which is great, but then how do you control the emotions of it and determine which one is mental health and which one is mental toughness?
That's a great point. I hadn't heard. I'll let you go. Yeah, that's a good point and nugget. I think for people to think about is the difference between mental health and mental toughness, and that's a good point, Coach. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah,
So
go
that's
ahead,
what I was
Dave.
gonna. Well, I was
Yeah.
gonna piggyback on that because being that you played at such a very high level, do you ever find yourself like, like you're like, damn, how did she just do that when, and kind of doing a
Mm-hmm.
subconscious comparison
Mm-hmm.
and realizing, okay, I got to temper my expectation just a tad bit
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because, yeah, I call it like the Michael Jordan syndrome, the reason why he probably never coached, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the way he was wired, everyone's not wired that way. And so, in volleyball, when you mentioned dogs, it's like, oh, I hear coach say they want dogs because like you rarely hear that. Like you mostly hear like, hey, keep it on this side. Hey, don't do that. Um, you know, and so it, when I heard it, I mean, my antenna was like, all right, that's rare in this sport,
Yeah.
but because again, I mean, kids get a big block or what a big kill, and they get excited in the moment, and he's like, no, no, don't do that. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a
I saw
break.
someone, this is the volleyball moms. I saw a volleyball mom talk about how on her head or whatever, how we shouldn't be doing that and it's not right for the mental. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
she just got
Mhm.
stuff blocked. You're just upset that your daughter is
Yeah,
basically embarrassed in a sense. And
yeah,
it's not
yeah.
embarrassing. And
It's
so
part of the
it's
game.
one, yeah, it's just,
It's part of
and
the
I think
game.
that's, like you said, it's so hard to take myself out of that and to be
Mhm.
like, you're really wanting an off day for this?
Right,
Like,
No, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and trying to find and get them to understand the importance of the time that we have and valuing that, I think is the only way. So it's like, yes, if you want an off day, you can do that, but what are you doing then? So if
right,
you're having a tough day, what are you doing to better yourself then? Because your teammates are going to be in the gym getting better, and getting our kids to understand that, like, not every day do you have to give 100%. Sometimes your 100% is only 60%, but are you giving 60 full, that full 100% of that
right,
60, or are you giving 60 of that 60? So you're only giving 30% really.
right,
And getting them to understand that concept of, like, when you have a rough day, leaning on your teammates, leaning on your coaches, having those conversations so that we can help you get through it, but also knowing, like, when life hits, you're not going to have a coach
yeah,
to help you. And that's one of the things when we talk about parents, like, if your daughter works at, I tell our parents this all the time, like, if your daughter works at the Bank of America and they have a bad day and they call you to talk about it, you're not going to go call the CEO of Bank of America.
right,
Like, she's working at Tesla, you're not going to call Elon.
right.
Like, so why do you feel that you have to call me? And getting the kids to understand how to vocalize those things and be comfortable with having to face those problems.
Do you, at the beginning of the season, do you do like a thing? I mean, and reach out, like maybe have a Zoom call with the parents, just kind of to stop that from happening on the front end?
Yeah. So with our freshmen, I get on a Zoom call with them and their parents, and I talk about, like, hey, I'm going to send you our schedule. I'm going to send you our hotels because I want you to spend time with your kids. I'm going to
Right,
send you where we're going. But just know that these are the rules in place, and that when it comes down to it, I'm the parent in place here.
right,
But if there is a concern with your daughter, and it's not about playing time, but it's, hey, they're mentally not in a good place, or they've said things that trigger me, like, getting the parents to understand what is a good phone call and what's a call not to do,
right.
I think is key for me, of like, hey, here's my phone number, but don't abuse it, because I will block you.
So, so do you
I
reach
gotta
out to
learn that because I
parents?
don't know how to block people. They everybody
I
calls
It,
me.
it,
do.
it's easy, but I don't do it either. But so do you reach out to parents if there's an injury?
A lot of times our trainer will do that,
Okay,
but not necessarily reach out. They'll be on the phone with the kid and just explain those things. But, like, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to call them and tell them that. If something were to happen like mid game and they're not there, then we have a protocol of, like, okay, who goes with the kid if they go in the ambulance and who goes here. And so my priority is the kid. The coaching piece, my assistants can do that. And so
right,
I have their numbers in my phone for that aspect of, like, if something happened to your kid, I'm going to give you a call.
right,
And getting them to feel comfortable again with that space of, like, I'm the parent away from home. I'm going to make sure they're doing the right thing. And we have the conversation too with the kids of, like, hey, look, I've been in college, I've done stupid things. But I would rather you call me and we have a conversation about how I'm disappointed in you and what, you chose to do versus me having to call your parent and tell them you're arrested or you got a DUI or any of those things. I would rather us be open enough to have those conversations, but to also make sure you're safe. And so that's probably the hard part for kids because they're so used to not wanting to tell their parents because they don't want to disappoint them.
Right.
But having the parents know that I'm trying to look out for the best interests in their kids.
Mhm. That's good. That's good to know. Well, tell
Did
us,
you-
what's the most enjoyable thing you
Yeah.
like about being a coach, and um, what kind of reward are you getting out of that? What's the thing that you enjoy most about being a coach and why you got it? Maybe why you got into coaching, but what's the most thing you've seen that's enjoyable?
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to get to go play professionally, and I know that a lot of these kids aren't going to get to do that. And that's part of the reason why I chose Kent State. Also, is my values aligned with theirs. So our mission statement is graduate student athletes boldly prepare for life after sport and win championships.
Hmm.
So the life after, the identity after, is what's more important to me. Yes, it's great to win, but are you figuring out who you are through these 4 years that you're here? And are you picking a program that you want to pick? And so I think I just had a kid text me today, and she was like, I appreciate and I'm sorry that I said you were acting like my mom and overprotective and kind of nagging and kind of holding me accountable, because I get it now. Like it's starting to make sense. Like you were just looking for the best interest in me. And that's what I told her. I said, I didn't give up then. I'm not going to give up now because one, I see potential, but also I don't care about the volleyball player. I care about the person. And I think that's what the mental health side, especially during COVID, I kind of started a nonprofit, Think Outside the Box, that one focused on spreading light to the lack of diversity in volleyball, but then also touching more on the player themselves and the person themselves. Because when I got done with college, my focus was pro, 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 pro. Well,
Right.
then pro wasn't making me happy, and I didn't know what to do then. I was kind of stuck in this space, and I only chose high school coaching because my hometown was like, hey, we don't have a coach. The basketball coach is about to be our coach, and we need help. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm probably going to go back overseas. So I'll just do this for this season and then leave. And then I got to be around it more and see the value in giving them the opportunity from what was given to me and all the experiences that I've had at different levels. And volleyball is taking me all over the place. I mean, not in the fact of just my players, but like my son. Like there's people back home in Iowa that have never even left our hometown. My kid has a passport, has been to a couple countries, like all of that. Like getting to show those experiences through the sport that gave me so much.
Excellent, excellent as well. Well, we don't like to
Waterloo,
wrap up
Iowa.
our show, but this has been exciting for us. What is it that you want to tell? I'm gonna give you a recruiting speech to anybody out there as well, but till you wrap up. But tell us, what is anything else you want to be able to tell our listening audience? We do appreciate you being on this great Volleyball Dad
Absolutely.
show.
Yep.
So make
Yep.
sure y'all do that. But we want you to come back to in season. Well, it won't bother you in season, but right before just to see what's going on with you and well, and we're going to obviously keep watching you and your team as well and see how you're in the coaching side. But tell us anything else you want to say to just your recruiting speech now to all those young athletes out there.
I think the biggest piece that I've learned, especially myself, is just be where your feet are. Um,
Mm.
and that helps with the recruiting process. Like it's going to be overwhelming. For me, like you talked about, like I was getting offered my eighth grade year. I played with seniors my eighth grade year. So I was the only person on commit, and they're like, who's that kid? Um, but it got so overwhelming that I was like, I need to make this decision now because I don't want to deal with it. And I wish, I think I went about it the right way because I allowed myself to control the recruiting process. But I think the kids who let the recruiting process control them don't live in the moment. And they're so focused about what coach is watching and, who's going to be at the tournament and what tournament they're going to be at. Like, if you just worry about yourself and doing your job, like the coaches are going to find you. If you are so worried about what's going on and then it's affecting your game, then you're not going to be where you want to be. And so I think just being in the moment and, you know, having the fact, I wish that I still had eligibility to play. I wish that I still, you know, the relationships I built with my teammates and just the experiences and I mean, it was so nice to not have to pay a bill when I was in college. Like, you know, those things that you're like, kids are always like, oh, I want to grow up. And it's like, live in that moment, because once you grow up, like once I was done with college, I was like, I got to buy a sports bra. I got to buy volleyball shoes. I got to buy knee pads. Like what? Like I have to buy this. So just those little things of like embracing those moments every single time.
That's a good message as well. I do want,
Great
I say that
message.
was our last question, but you know, and like I said, a lot of this, our listeners are people who are in the recruiting process as well. You know, how, you say live in the moment and patient, but it's hard, I think, when there's so
Mm-hmm.
much surrounding you. And
Mm-hmm.
even I hear coaches telling kids,
Social
hey,
media.
Mm-hmm.
but they're telling kids, email all these coaches and make sure you're doing your homework and making sure that and you're talking about, some kids are trying to reach 50 kids and 60, I mean, I'm sorry, 50 coaches and 60 coaches. To me, it's just hard and taxing on those kids and stuff. So it's good to hear you say, relax and be in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We also know there's other stuff being fed into their heads
Mm-hmm.
too, right? And so,
Yeah.
and I promise this will be my last question. So, what's your advice to handling that? I mean, I know you've kind of already said it, and I really appreciate, and I know Dame does too, how you kind of provided this insight to our audience, but how do you balance that? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, you're a parent too, right? So you understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I think understanding that it's their recruiting process. And that's what I talk to my kids about too. And we have like when we're on the phone, like this is your recruiting process. So we'll even ask kids like, do you want to be talked to? Like, do you want us to reach out to you every single day? Do you want us to, once high school season starts, is it a once a week we're on a phone call? Is it once a month? Is it every other week? Like, how do you want your recruiting process to go? And I think when you get the kids who are waiting and letting the coaches determine that, at some point, you're not going to be happy. I think too with that, this is a little slug to some of them, but stop paying people to be your recruiting coordinator. Like if your club should have it.
Oh,
But
that's not a slug.
I mean,
Yeah, no.
I mean, I would rather a kid send me a personal email than it come from a recruiting service. And I can tell when it comes from a
Uh,
recruiting service.
yeah, that's good. That's
It,
good to know because like a
yeah, and
lot
it
of some
shows.
coaches push though recruit services, sports recruits. I'll just tell you that right off. They push that a
Yeah,
lot.
no
Is it the
problem with you
money?
using Sports Recruit for your film, but it's not hard to make it. Yeah, they all know how to do YouTube and all that. It's not hard to make a YouTube video, put the link in there, drop what year you are. A lot of kids don't do that. They don't put what class they are. So putting what class you are in the subject and really just being you. What I don't like is I can tell when it's a recruiting service or a chain email because I'll respond back and say, hey, sorry, we're not interested. And then I still get a message from you every week because you've just got my name plugged in there. And it's just pumping out, hey, Kent State coaches, like personalize it, put who the coaches are, check who the coaches are, because there have been coaching changes. Or you get kids that they'll send me, hey, coach, I really want to be a Jayhawk. I'm like, well, I'm not Kansas. So um, nice try. That instantly is getting deleted because you didn't do the digging and like you said, the research of it. So going through the schools that you want to go through, and I have no problem with you being persistent on
Mistakes
that.
happen. Mistakes happen sometimes.
You got
Hey,
to double proof,
co co
proofread.
coaches have done that too.
I've done that. Yeah, and I've done that. Like I've copied it. Like on June 15th, I have one text that I send to those kids, but I make sure though that I go back and I make sure the name is the right name,
Right.
and who I'm talking to, because it would be the same. Like it would be me basically trying to say, well, don't do that, but then I'm going out and calling you Ashley and your name is Jessica.
I
But you
know.
have to double check those things. Yeah.
They do.
But I mean, that goes to show too, then the effort that those coaches are putting in. So as a coach,
Yeah.
I make sure that I make notes so that when we have the next conversation, I'm like, hey, how's your dad doing? Or how's your
Yeah.
brother? Or
Yep.
like I have a kid who that transferred to me. Her twin sister is in the transfer portal too. So hey, how's she doing? Did she find a school? Like those conversations. But I also am big too on if I get a no, making sure I say, well, best of luck. If you need anything or if anything changes, let me know because I want to end on good terms. Because they may end up in
Right.
the portal and I'm like, hey, remember me?
Right,
We had a
Yeah.
good
right.
conversation. So making sure that kids are the same way because they may have something that pops up that now they're in the portal and it's like, well, I was kind of rude to that coach or I dismissed her or I ghosted
Nope.
her.
You tell
Same thing.
everyone,
Relationship. That's
no
in life
matter how
and
cumbersome
relationship.
it is,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm considering other options. You can keep it sweet,
Yep.
but if anything
Yeah.
changes, I'll let you know. No,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
I agree.
Sure.
Yeah.
You never
And I
know.
think that that's the difference between a recruiting coordinator from a club and a
Right.
recruiting service is they're walking you through the right ways to have the conversations and the right ways to do it versus the recruiting service that is just pumping out your film for what and not having the relationships that the club coaches have.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
No, you're spot on
Well,
with that. I mean,
you're spot on.
there's no perfect science to it. There are some mistakes going to
Right.
be made, but you covered everything holistic. And like I said, what resonated with me was, you like dogs. I mean, you know, no, I'm serious, man. I mean,
Hey, we
that's
don't see that often, but I mean, we don't hear that often, but
Yeah.
or people are afraid to say it, so we say,
And
no.
getting
I
people
mean,
to understand too, not everybody has to be. You don't have to be a dog. Like what's Coach Prime say? Like, are you a dog or a captain or whatever he says? Like
oh
so
yeah,
some people are
yeah,
going to be your dogs, and some people are going to be your vote. And that's what we talk about. Like you may not be the vocal leader, but you may go be the person that does by example and
yeah.
finding what their
It's a
way of
different term, like you said,
yes.
you know, but it's again whether you compete. Like, who wants a kid that says, "I know we're going to lose"?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
seriously.
I mean, and it's believe it or not,
Oh,
I've
we're
heard that
playing
on the
such and
court.
such. Oh, I know we're
I've
going to
even
lose.
heard that on the court, but anyway, well, no. Hey, Coach Eckerman, we really appreciate your
Yeah,
time. We
that's what I'm
know
saying.
that,
So, like, why are you playing?
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But Coach, we really appreciate your time
Yeah,
and
we could
joining
go
the
all day
show.
long. I'm sorry.
Oh, we talk. We can talk all day long, but our sponsors want us to end. No,
Yeah, yeah. Come on,
so with
prospects.
that, but join us at Volleyball Dads Podcast. Once again, follow us on X on VBall Dads. Also, our email is
Instagram.
volleyballdatspodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate all of your comments and stuff, especially my boy Tyrone. I want to shout out to him because he always emails us with a lot of interesting questions and others that are out there as well. But Coach Ackerman, we really appreciate you. Want you good luck at Kent State. We're going to follow you, of course, obviously, but we're also going to look for great things coming out of you and your program here in the future as well. I'm still on the old volleyball circuit, so once in a while you'll see me at the gym, and I'm probably going to say hi to you. So when I tap you on the shoulder, say, "Who is that guy?" No, it's me.
Don't slap
Hey,
him.
hey, who is that parent that bothers me? I don't want to recruit.
No, you're good. You're
Doing
good.
all that
And that's
screaming.
the thing.
Doing all that screaming.
Yeah, who is I'm screaming over there?
Who's that dad who got put out?
That only happened once. No, I'm just kidding. Never happened to me. Never happened to me. Never will. No, I'm learned to be a great cheerleader. So, but no, I love me and Dane both. We enjoy this podcast because of people like you.
Oh yeah,
We're able to
it's
have come
therapeutic.
on and talk about your experience as well. And we appreciate it as well. So, good luck in the future. We'll be talking to you soon. Once again, follow us at Volleyball Dads at VBall Dads on X, and then Volleyball Dads Podcast
Volleyball
at
Dads
gmail.com.
podcast
Ricky
on
Mutts.
Instagram.
And on
Yep.
Instagram, that's what Dane's favorite place is Instagram. All right, with that, thank you all. I appreciate it. All right, I'm going to just
Thank
pause,
you.
Coach.